Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this week I'm going to talk about shoes and specifically how your footwear is going to affect your squat. For about the last 6 months, if you've been following me on Instagram, you would have noticed that I've been squatting barefoot. I've had absolutely no one ask me why, but I still think it's quite an interesting topic, so I thought I'd do a little video on it. Now, before we actually get into footwear and specifically to squats, we're just going to go over a little bit of mechanics and some anatomy. So when we're performing a squat, essentially what we're doing is we're bending or creating flexion at 3 different joints. Those are your ankle, your knee, and your hip. Now, there are different styles of squats, and people are going to squat slightly differently based on their body shape. And essentially what's going to happen is we're going to have different degrees of bend at each one of these joints. Following on from that, different amounts of bend that we create at certain joints is going to change the amount of tension that we're putting in certain muscles in that movement. So how does your footwear affect all of this? Well, really, it's just going to change the angle at one joint, and that is the ankle. If you have, let's say you have a shoe with quite a pronounced heel, okay? What that does is it gives your ankle freedom to allow the shin to shift further forward to create a bigger angle at the ankle. What that in turn does is it drives the knee forward and we get a bigger bend at the knee, and this places a lot more tension through that knee joint as well as a lot more tension on the quads. What we also find is that your torso is able to stay a lot more upright in your squat. So that's a good thing if you're looking for that type of squat. Now the other end of the spectrum is using a shoe that's completely flat. So something like a Converse Tacky or something like that. That's a good example. Now what happens there is that ankle or the shin isn't able to shift as far forward, so we get less of a bend at the ankle, which means we get less bend at the knee because it hasn't shifted as far forward, and the hips stay a little bit further back. What that also means is your torso leans a little bit further forward. Now, neither of these types of positions are inherently bad. It all just depends on what works better for you and what you're trying to achieve with your squat. But you can see how your choice of footwear is going to affect your positions. Now, for most people who are squatting, they're probably just going to be using just a standard activity shoe or a gym shoe or something like that, and it's not really going to be on either ends of the spectrum. It's going to be somewhere in between. Now, if you want to change the angle of your squat, what you can do is if you need a little bit more heel raise, you can pop something small under your heel to raise that ankle up slightly, or if you want to go the other way around, maybe take the shoe off and squat barefoot. Now, back to the beginning and me squatting barefoot and why I do it. So I used to squat with a weightlifting shoe. So as you can see on a weightlifting shoe, the heel is a lot more pronounced in comparison to the front of the shoe. So this is obviously an extreme case, but what tends to happen there, as I said earlier, this is going to create a lot more bend at the knee. Okay, more stress on the quads, a little bit more tension at the knee joint. I ended up experiencing a little bit of knee pain. So I decided, flog the weightlifting shoe, change my style of squat, and started squatting barefoot, which means I get less of a bend at that knee joint. And it feels a lot better for me. Now, that is not going to be the case for everyone, and that's not the style of squat that everyone should use. Even if you are experiencing some knee pain, that might not be the reason why, but it is something to think about, guys. This is always going to be a case-by-case basis though, and if you're going to make these decisions, you need to understand why and do it for a reason. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it informative. I will see you next week.